Hey guys, welcome back to ENDSTEP, the Upkeep Aftershow. This last Friday, we played Tribal, and it went very interestingly, we'll say.
For you.
Yeah. Steven's a bad sport sometimes.
No.
I did one cool thing that game.
Yeah. That's all that matters. But, we have a couple different questions that we might normally ask just because everyone seems to have a Tribal deck. It seems like a lot of players just kind of have a feel for it. So that's going to be our first question. So Steven, why don't you start us off? What attracted you to build a Tribal deck? Because it seems like a lot of people like them, but people like different kinds of tribes. So what made you want to build a Tribal deck, and then what specifically made you want to build werewolves?
Well, werewolves were one of the first creature types I really got into, largely because Shadows over Innistrad and Eldritch Moon were like the sets that kind of they were the newest sets when I first started getting into Magic, and I thought the werewolf cards were especially cool because they flip and become stronger versions of themselves. So that was the main thing that brought my attention to wolves and werewolves, and they just got good synergy with each other.
Cool. Tommy, what about you? What made you want to play vampires?
So this actually is the a precon from Innistrad Crimson Vow, and I haven't been playing Commander that long. Innistrad Crimson Vow came out not long after I got into Commander. I've been playing Magic for a while, but Commander specifically, it came out right around the time I was really getting into Commander. And so it seemed like just a fun deck to play with the idea of I never really messed with Tribal decks in other formats. So I just figured it'd be a fun idea and start with the precon to, get me into the idea of a Tribal deck in Commander and all that.
Cool. Preston, you have a couple Tribal decks, so I'll add on to your question here, which is what drew you to Goblins, but then also what made you want to play Goblins this week as opposed to one of your other Tribal decks?
Okay, so first off, I have Goblins, Allies, and currently Dinosaurs. I'm kind of on the fence about that one, keeping it together. So those are the three Tribal decks I have. I went with Goblins this week because it's probably my best Tribal deck, at least consistently. It's usually pretty strong. I hit a lot of the good cards a lot of the times I play it. So that's why I wanted to represent that this week. And the reason I originally built the Goblin deck is because I think it's really fun to just put 1,000 creatures out onto the battlefield in one turn. That's just the kind of stuff I like to do in a game of Magic, is typically doing ridiculous stuff that's not technically infinite. I do have one infinite combo in the deck, but besides that, it's just getting big as much as possible, as quickly as possible. And Cranko is really good at doing that, so that's why I built the deck originally.
Cool. Yeah, and then for me, Dragons, this is probably my third Dragon deck that I've ever had. I used to have an Dragon deck, which I don't have anymore, which I'm kind of sad about. And then I also have a mono red Dragon deck. And then when I saw the new one come out for Battle of Baldur's Gate, I thought it was really sick. Had to give it a try, but I just think Dragons are badass. It's a fantasy game. We're going to want to play with our fantasy creatures. But Steven, next question for you. What are 2 or 3 of the cards that you really like in your deck that you didn't get to showcase in the game?
So one of them, and this is a card that I did play last game, was Averbrook Caretaker.
Yes, because we did do a test game several months ago before this series technically started, and Steven played Tovolar and he won.
I did. And that was largely because of Averbrook Caretaker. She was keep just buffing up, every combat, buffing up all my creatures.
And keeping them safe.
And keeping them safe because it says creatures you control have Hexproof, or Wolves and Werewolves, I don't know. Tovolar's Huntmaster, I did have this card in my hand during the last two turns of the game or whatever, and I just didn't cast it just because what's the point? Although I did thinking about it, Tovolar's Huntmaster would have been useful sort of because when he transforms, he can pay mana to have target wolf or werewolf you control fight another creature you don't control. With a 7/7 doing that, most of your creatures were 6/6s or lower.
I had a lot of 6/6s.
So I could have at least done something there, but in the long run, it wouldn't have meant anything in the long run. And then the other one I have that would have been really cool is Hollowhinge Overlord. It's a 4/4 wolf with flash, and it says the beginning of your upkeep. For each creature you control that's a wolf or werewolf, create a 2/2 green wolf creature token. So every upkeep, I'm doubling the number of creatures I have.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
It's an awesome card, and I don't think I've ever gotten to use it before, ever.
Really?
I don't think so. Not that I can remember.
Was it in your deck still when we did the last one?
Yeah, I don't think I played it.
That's.
Or I don't think I did.
That's weird.
But it's an awesome card.
Tommy, what are a couple cards in your deck that you didn't get to show off?
Yeah. So I mean, not really a card, but an ability is the main ability of my commander, which lets me sacrifice blood. Well, he generates blood tokens pretty quickly when he stays alive. Thanks, Morgan. So he can generate blood tokens quickly, and then I can use them, sacrifice them to bring out any vampire without paying its mana cost. So he's which it also comes out attacking with indestructible till the end of the turn. So it can really put a splash on my combat when I have like a vampiric dragon in there. I have some pretty big, creatures in there that I can just kind of splash out and be like, oh, by the way, here's this extra damage coming y'all's way. So that's the main ability of the deck that we just didn't get to see because he just didn't stay alive that long. But a couple of other ones, ironically, no actual vampires in these ones that I want to show off. But Shadowgrange Archfiend is actually a demon creature. But when he enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control. And I would then gain life equal to the greatest power among creatures sacrificed this way. So it's just a nice way to kind of take everyone down a notch and then gain me some life at the same time. He also has a madness. He normally costs 6 and a black, but he has a madness cost of 2 and a black, and I also pay 8 life. So
it's pretty easy to get the madness since you have all the blood tokens floating around in the deck.
Right, with all the blood tokens, and then with just a lot of vampires have stuff like lifelink and ways to gain life pretty efficiently. So it's just with that madness cost, it can be pretty nice between being able to just sacrifice it with a blood token and use my extra life if I have it to pay that. Predator's Hour is just a really fun card in most black decks. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain menace, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of that player's library. Face down, you may look at and play that card for as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend a mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. So just kind of a good way of sort of stealing from the other players and getting some stuff that could potentially help me. And then Glasscast Heart, which it's a really fun one that I haven't got to do much with in the past, but the main ability that I want to draw attention to on it is you pay 2 black and tap it. You can sacrifice Glasscast Heart and 13 blood tokens, and each opponent loses 13 life, and I would then gain 13 life. So, as I'm kind of generating these blood tokens, if I'm saving them up, either I just don't have use for them, or I want to save them up. And say I have that in my hand or something, I can play that, come in, and it tends to come in later in games, so that can be a real showstopper, quote unquote, towards the end of the game. Of players tend to have less life, so it can help, just knock out some players or really knock them down a good peg, and then gain me some life as well. So
yeah. So Preston, what are also if you guys want to see the full deck list, I should have mentioned this in the last episode, but if you go back and watch the video last Friday, in the description of that video, you can go and see all of our deck lists in the description of that video, so check that out. But Preston, you mentioned you had an infinite combo, so tell us real quick, what's that infinite combo, and then also what are a couple other cards you want to highlight? Okay, so the infinite combo requires 4 or so cards to work. I need my commander out. I need a goblin called Skirk Prospector. It's a 1/1 that lets me sacrifice a goblin to add a red to my mana pool. And then the major key piece is Sword of the Perunes. It's an equipment that I can put on a creature for 3 mana, and then I can pay 3 to tap or untap the creature that it's on. So I put it on my commander, and then with Skirk Prospector, I can sacrifice my 1/1s that I make, untap my commander, tap it again, make more creatures, keep doing that. As long as I have enough to sacrifice 3 goblins each time to do that, I'll get a net either in mana or with creatures. And then I can use a card like Goblin Bombardment, which says sacrifice a creature, it deals 1 damage to any target, or I can have out one of my goblins to give my goblins haste and make an infinite number of goblins to swing with. So that's like the infinite combo, the way to really end a game without having to do too much thinking. It's just make infinite number. But my fun cards that I wanted to point out are Blood Moon.
Because that's
fun, quote unquote.
a very well known card for being very fun to people.
Oh yeah.
Making all non-basic lands mountains when in a mono red deck, that's pretty good. Chaos Sphere is one I really like. It basically makes it so flying creatures can't block non-flying creatures, and non-flying creatures can block flying creatures, so you're basically swapping around their abilities. And then this is probably the worst card in the deck, but it makes me very happy. It's Goblin Snowman. It's a 1/1 for 4 mana. Great value.
Oh yeah.
But he says, when blocking, Goblin Snowman neither deals nor receives combat damage.
So it's basically indestructible.
So it's kind of
when
indestructible.
No, it's just
attacking?
objectively worse than indestructible because it only works as a blocker.
Yeah, it still
Yeah.
dies to a board wiper or Doomblade or
Or
something.
if I try to attack
Why
with
is
it.
that in the deck?
Because it's funny.
Because it's a goblin
Look at the
snowman.
art. Look at the art.
Look at
Steven.
it.
It's a bunch of goblins making a snowman.
It's
It
so
makes no
bad.
sense.
He just got done explaining his infinite combo. I think he's got plenty of ways to win games in that.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Yeah, so obviously I had a much better game than the rest of the table, but again, in my defense, I've never done that before. I've never cast my commander before turn 5 or 6 before. And I cast my commander, I think, on turn 3 that game. I don't know how that happened. I hope that never happens again because being the arch enemy is not fun.
We hope you never do that again.
Well, I'm sure that's true too, but I just want to play my big dragons, okay? Steven, is there anything specifically that you wish you could have done differently, or anything that you think you could have played better? You already mentioned having the Huntmaster in hand, and then kind of wishing you had cast it. Was there anything else that you think you might have could have done different?
No. I don't think I did not think with where you were at right now, I could have done anything. And sadly, one of I currently do not have any board wipes on the deck. That's a big thing and I also don't have much protection from flying. I have 2 or 3 creatures with reach, and I did play one of them, and then it died.
And it died.
And then I had another one, Bounding Wolf, I think is what it's called, or something like that, and it has flash and flying. So I was gonna flash that in.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, but all your creatures had trample, so I would have only prevented 2 of that.
So it sounds like something you need to do is just add some board wipes to the deck.
There aren't many werewolves with reach.
Yeah.
And 0 with flying.
Yeah, but you do have at least some access to some board wipes in those colors, so I would recommend that.
Yeah, that's definitely something that's on the to-do list.
Yeah. So Tommy, what is there anything specifically you feel like you could have done differently, or do you think you were just doing the best with the hand you were dealt?
Mostly doing what I could. Strafon is cool, but he takes a little bit to get going, and needs a lot of protection sometimes because he's a very clear threat. The one thing that I probably could have done that would have been somewhat maybe smarter was, instead of sacrificing the blood tokens to bring out that creature at the end that just died anyway, was actually using them for the way the blood tokens themselves work, and sacrificing them, discarding a card, paying a mana, and drawing a card, so I could hopefully draw into, I don't know, a board wipe or something to potentially deal with your board state. Because I know I have at least I have a blasphemous act in here, which would have knocked a good number of pretty much all your creatures, because that's 13 damage. So
Yeah,
the fact that there were
I would have survived.
that, and the fact that you had so many creatures out would also knock the cost down to make it pretty cheap for me to bring out. So that probably would have been the one I was hoping for. So I could have theoretically tried to just go hunting, believe in the heart of the cards that I could top deck a blasphemous act, but that's not. If you're hoping for that, it's already too late.
Yeah, that's fair. Preston, what about you? Was there anything you could have done better? Do you feel like you kind of were able to do the best you could?
That was a pretty great opening for me. Had you not gone off so hard, I would have been in a pretty good position. So I also should probably put a couple board wipes in this deck. It's just one of those things where it's kind of hard to fit them in there because the deck really wants to be as aggressive as possible. So I don't want too many board wipes because I want to end the game as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I will say, I have kind of come to the sense of it, even in really creature-heavy decks where you want to be building out your board, you want to have a lot of creatures, you want to have more creatures than your opponent, you're still going to want at least some board wipes in your deck, just because there are going to be situations where your opponent's boards are just so much better than yours that your best chance is just hit the restart button. So I've come to the conclusion that even in really creature-heavy decks, still run at least a couple board wipes. But for me, there was something that I noticed. So on my last turn, it didn't matter. It was the end of the game. I was winning. I was so far ahead, it didn't matter. But the Udvala Hellkite I forgot that I had the token copy of it. So when I was attacking, I should have created twice as many 6/6 tokens, which would have let me draw an extra 6 cards, I think. But there's just like little things here and there. I think my main thing with this deck is there were a couple other times in the game where I had like little errors here and there where I was just having a hard time keeping track of stuff. And I think it's really that I just haven't played this deck a lot. This is the 3rd or 4th time I've played it. So I think I just need to get more familiar with it. So that was definitely embarrassing on my part. But what do you guys think? Did you guys like Tribal Week other than getting stomped?
No.
Would you ever want to play Tribal Week again?
Potentially.
I think so. I mean, it's just there's so many options out there. So if
Yeah.
we wanted to do it again with just different tribes, there's so many options out there for it. I think it could be fun.
Yeah. What do
Yeah,
you?
Tribal Week's always fun.
Yeah, Tribal. I could definitely see if we do another season of this show. So like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. If we get enough traction here, we're going to keep doing this show for another season. What are the odds that you guys bring these decks back for Revenge Week? Steven, I don't know if you can qualify because you technically got to play Tovolar in episode 0. But
Yeah, I feel
how
like...
do you feel? Could you see you bringing this back for Revenge Week at the end of the season?
Probably not, because you are right. This is technically the 2nd time I've already played this deck, and I won the first game, and I didn't this game. So
it is a game of variety. It is a game of chance.
It's like I'm probably would want to bust a different deck out.
I didn't say what Revenge Week is. Revenge Week, last episode of this season, so episode 12, we will all bring back our favorite deck from the season that didn't win. As a way to give it one more chance. Tommy, what about you? Do you feel like you could bring this back for Revenge Week?
Probably not. I like the deck. I have fun with it, but it's just not the strongest. And yeah, I doubt I'd bring it back for Revenge Week. I have a better idea of what I would like to bring back for Revenge Week. Assuming I don't win with that one, but I doubt I will in the way it's built now. But whatever. Yeah, so probably not.
That's fair. And then finally, Preston, what do you think?
It's not my go-to plan at the moment, but depending on how the rest of the season goes and which decks I do or don't win with, I might bring it back.
Awesome. Well, any last closing thoughts on Tribal Week?
You should take that deck apart.
Yeah, that was
It's so
crazy.
fun. It's so cool. It is bonkers strong, though. That was by far the best game I've ever had with it, and again, it's only the 3rd or 4th time I've played with it, but yeah, it was crazy strong. But thank you guys for watching. I hope that this video informed you more about what's going on in our minds and our play styles when we play these games, so I hope you enjoyed these after shows. And then make sure you subscribe, share with a friend. We have more games coming out. This is episode, I don't know, we're filming them out of order. This is episode either 2 or, this is, I don't know, one of the first episodes. Make sure you subscribe, go watch episodes you haven't seen, whatever, and we will see you guys later.
And leave very hateful comments toward Morgan.
Now.
He deserves it now more than ever.